bitter he was looking for, and in the weather.
Oh. Hello. Sorry, I was just going basically along with a reinterpretation of the main theme from today's game. The game being Artura.
RetroKork.
Okay, so Artura is a game from Gremlin Graphics, which was released in, I would say, the last quarter or so of 1988. Probably end of November, beginning of December. Why I can tell it that accurately? Well, it's because I have found reviews on it on the internet that were referenced, and the earliest one was from December 1988, and much more were from January 89, so that's that. But we're not here to check the game's scores, but the game itself. Now, as far as it goes, the backstory is, well, it's a very loose take on the Arthurian legend, with a lot of the serial numbers obviously filed off. So, for example, Arthur has turned into Artura, son of the Pendragon, which is sounding more like the name you'd give for a writing implement than a king, given how the multi-language fold-out sheet of loading instructions this game came with, and that tries to pass itself as instructions, makes it sound. He's also not a king, or Artura, he's an Ardri, which sounds more like someone tried to vomit up something sounding vaguely Welsh. I mean, okay, the song I listened to at the very beginning, that one was trying to sound rather Irish. So, yeah. Merlin, well, he has gotten the totally original name of Merdin, with a Y, which is kind of not what one of the inspirations behind the original Merlin character, namely, and I'm sorry for my mangling of the Welsh language, Merdin Wild, or also known as the, for me much easier to pronounce, Melinos Caledonis. Sorry, Melinos Caledonensis was called. And yes, I said that with a German accent. Now, Morgane does not appear. Instead, her sister Morgause, who originally is less magically inclined as far as I understand it, she's basically Morgause is taking on all the traits that you would assign Morgane to. Nimue stays Nimue, at least in name. Nimue, by the way, if that name doesn't tell you anything, it's not only an AI on another show on the internet called Atop the Fourth Wall for a spaceship. It's also the name of the Lady of the Lake. And yes, she's only that by name because she was downgraded to Merdin's apprentice, and she's our damsel in distress in this game, as we need to find her in Morgane's stronghold to learn where to find Merdin in a world that is filled with misspelled Welsh names for at least some characters. Some are, strangely enough, going okay. Even Camelot gets softened into a Camelode with a D at the end, which feels more like what it would be called in the Monty Python's Flying Circus sketch. Maybe even the early drafts of Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail. Well, to be honest, the game plays like it's made by someone, well, rather incompetent. You have a constant onslaught of enemies, and I do mean constant. there is very little moments in which you get a little bit of a breather, where there's not at least one enemy on screen. And if there is, well, it's only a short moment of time, as the very next second a guard can pop up on the side of the screen, which is very, very bad if you just switched screens. I find the controls to be rather sluggish, and the worst part is that you seem to have to perform some leaps of faith, where your jump is pretty much unpredictable because you have to jump from one screen to the next. It's a mess with a stock story, not very appreciable designs, at least due to their rather blocky, low-resolution nature. And have I mentioned the explosions? Let me check. Game from merging. God, you don't believe how much research I had to do actually into the Arthurian lore, because it's anyway. No, I haven't mentioned those explosions up to this point. So the human-shaped guards, they explode if they're hit enough times by your thrown battle axes. Which arcs? So at least that's something it got going for. They explode into what can only be explained as the laziest of explosions possible, as the sprites used for them, that is, if they are sprites, not like other people assumed the actual real deal, the graphics used for the explosions, or the particles of the explosions, well, they could very well just be slightly modified asterisks. The game has one good point, and that's the music. Ben Daglish's main theme that you are hearing in the background. It is quite remarkable, and even the version coming out of the Commodore 64, which is what I'm playing, well, it has enough atmosphere to pull you in. The in-game music, however, it feels a lot more lackluster. All in all, is Artura a game that is, at least in my book, very easy to skip. It's a sluggish platforming game that reminds me a bit of Castlevania. Well, the less than awesome bits of Castlevania. In the next episode, I'm going to take a look at a classic game, really, though it is much more modern than Pong. It's a city management game called SimCity.